Imagine if all the volcanoes on Earth erupted at the same time. Rivers of molten lava, columns of ash, and destructive clouds of smoke would engulf every continent. Have you ever wondered what would happen to civilization, the climate, and the world itself in such a catastrophe? Watch until the end to learn about the most shocking consequences that almost no one talks about. And don't forget to write in the comments, what would you do if this happened tomorrow? Imagine that one morning all the volcanoes on the planet erupt simultaneously. Tongues of flame and lava burst forth, and giant clouds of ash rise into the sky. The sound of the eruptions is deafening. It's as if the earth is screaming, trying to warn humanity. But what happens next? Which regions will be affected first? In this chaos, humanity will face an unprecedented catastrophe. Watch until the end to find out what consequences will be inevitable and how life on the planet will change. When hundreds of volcanoes erupt, lava flows turn cities into ash-covered deserts. Lava moves at several miles per hour, burning everything in its path. But the most frightening thing is not the fire, but the thick clouds of volcanic ash that can completely block out the sunlight. The temperature on Earth can drop by several degrees in just a few months. Such volcanic nuclear fog has already led to famine, destruction of ecosystems, and climate anomalies. And this is not fantasy, but a scientifically proven risk. What do you think will be more dangerous for humanity, the heat of lava or the cold of eternal shadow? Volcanic ash rises kilometers into the atmosphere, mixing with gases. Sulfur and carbon dioxide create a dense layer that reflects the sun's rays. The Earth is plunged into twilight. How long can humans survive without normal light? How will plants and animals adapt to the darkness? Science has answers to these questions, but the consequences will be catastrophic. Crop yields will fall, temperatures will change dramatically, and the climate will become unpredictable. Imagine a metropolis that turns into a fiery trap in just a few hours. Rivers of lava flow down the avenues like red-hot arteries, melting everything man-made: glass, metal, concrete. Bridges collapse, roads disappear, and the air becomes thick with hot ash that clogs the lungs and makes breathing painful. Grey flakes fall slowly from above. Not snow, but toxic ash that robs the sky of light. The city, bustling and alive in the morning, becomes an endless, smoking desert by evening. People desperately seek shelter, but most are faced with chaos. Transportation stops, communications fail, and panic overwhelms the crowds. And at that moment, it becomes painfully obvious how fragile our civilization is when nature decides to remind us of its power. Could such a planetary eruption have been predicted? Modern science is capable of tracking the activity of individual volcanoes, detecting increases in magma pressure, and recording micro-earthquakes. But the simultaneous explosion of dozens or hundreds of volcanoes across the planet is a scenario for which humanity is still completely unprepared. Interesting fact: one of the largest eruptions in history, Toba, about 74,000 years ago, reduced the human population to a few thousand and caused a volcanic winter that lasted for years. What do you think is more frightening, the natural disaster itself, or the fact that we may see it too late? The ash not only blocks out sunlight, but also turns the air into a poisonous mixture of tiny particles and toxic gases. People try to breathe through masks, respirators, and homemade filters, but even these cannot completely protect the lungs from the microscopic ash that penetrates everywhere. Days become darker than normal nights, and the world takes on a dull, grey-brown hue. Plants wither within the first day without light, animals seek shelter, and rivers and lakes begin to acidify due to acid rain. Ecosystems are collapsing before our very eyes. Watch until the end to find out how many days or weeks such a volcanic apocalypse could last. The answer may surprise you. Interesting fact. After the eruption of Tambora in 1815, the whole world experienced a year without summer. Crops died and temperatures dropped by several degrees. What do you think will be the main challenge for humans during such weeks of darkness? Cold, hunger, or air that is scary to breathe? When hundreds of volcanoes spew ash and molten rock into the oceans, marine ecosystems suffer a blow comparable to mass extinction. The water heats up rapidly at the epicenter of the eruption, raising giant columns of steam that block out the sky and create local storms. Fish die by the thousands from the temperature and toxic compounds, and coral reefs, the most sensitive structures on the planet, literally dissolve in the acidified water. Pressure waves and underwater landslides generate tsunamis that cover the coasts of different continents almost simultaneously. Small islands are the first to disappear. They are simply washed away. Only the highest and most remote areas of land can survive, and even then, not for long. Any evacuation plans are meaningless because the disaster affects the entire ocean basin. Interesting fact, the most powerful underwater eruption in recent history, Hunga Tonga, 2022, caused a tsunami that was recorded even in Russia and Peru. What do you think will save people more, retreating deep into the continent or trying to wait out the disaster at sea? When the sun is hidden behind thick clouds of volcanic ash, temperatures drop by several degrees Fahrenheit in the first few weeks. Crops die, the soil loses heat, and hunger spreads faster than governments can respond. The water in the oceans cools, but at the same time, glaciers in some regions begin to melt due to uneven heat redistribution and changes in ocean currents. In other places, on the contrary, abnormal cooling begins. Snowfall in summer, frosts in deserts, sharp differences between day and night. Watch until the end. These processes are capable of permanently changing the climate and the usual cycle of life on the planet. Interesting fact, after the Tambora eruption in 1815, the Earth's temperature dropped so much that it snowed in the United States in June. Some species are becoming extinct, while others are adapting. Human civilization is seeking ways to survive: bunkers, new food sources, artificial lighting for plants. But will humans be able to cope with this global crisis? The history of Earth shows that massive volcanic eruptions have led to extinctions, but life has found ways to continue. Question for discussion. What measures would you take if this happened tomorrow? The simultaneous eruption of all volcanoes is a catastrophe that is both terrifying and impressive. The planet turns into a fiery, ash-covered desert. The sky is hidden by smoke. The sun barely breaks through the grey clouds. The oceans rage and boil, and the climate changes beyond recognition. Urban and natural ecosystems collapse in a matter of days, reminding us how much the power of nature surpasses any technology. But there is a lesson to be learned from this tragedy. Humanity is learning to respect the planet, anticipate extreme events, and create new ways to protect itself and survive. Even in chaos, there is an opportunity for science, bold ideas, and innovations that will help us adapt to incredible conditions. Watch until the end. You will discover the most unexpected facts about volcanoes, their hidden powers, and events that few dare to imagine. Interesting fact: the largest eruption in history, Toba, about 74,000 years ago, led to a global volcanic winter that could have reduced the human population to a few thousand. Are you ready to see what Earth might look like after such a cataclysm